Our first bill of the agenda is Representative Purcell, House File 2043 on Farm to School. Representative Purcell, please move your bill.
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, Representative Purcell moves that House File 2023 be laid over for possible inclusion. I see that you have a DE1 amendment. Would you please move your amendment?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move amendment DE, the DE amendment to put the bill in the shape that I would like it with dollar amounts.
All right, discussion to the amendment. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion prevails. Amendment D1 is adopted. The bill is now in the shape with other ones. Representative Purcell, please tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House File 2043 is a bill whose previous iterations I supported as a parent, a local foods advocate, and farmer. And it's my honor and privilege to carry this legislation now as a legislator. I have seen firsthand, and you will soon hear from friends and neighbors of mine to this point, how this relatively small investment has and will continue to create larger and larger ripples outward in support of our rural communities, smaller scale farms, and our youngest Minnesotans. In the bill is $5 million per year for our Farm to School and Early Care program. Currently, our funding level is at $800,000 per year, although last year with some federal funds, we were able to give out $4.25 million through a federal grant program. Also included in the bill is $150,000 a year for a farm to school coordinator at the Department of Ag, and establishes regional local food coordinators who would build on top of the foundation laid by previous farm to school efforts in order to scale the purchasing of local foods. Having region-specific coordinators as the point of contact for farmers and interested new markets will help to grow new relationships and the scaling of local foods. As I mentioned, last year, we saw $4.25 million federal grant come to Minnesota to support our Farm to School program from a federal government grant, and still, there was more demand than that level of funding. External evaluation of the Farm to School program captured economic impact, documented success, and identified barriers to access and opportunity for improvements. And we have an initial grant evaluation that I'm happy to share. I don't believe was in your packet. And we have additional evaluation included in the bill. And just to note that the Minnesota Department of Agriculture is incredibly supportive of this bill, and we've been working together to strengthen the bill language with their feedback. The ripples of benefits that will emanate from funding this initiative could grow quite large, depending on the level of support we decide to give. I hope that after reading and hearing so much positive testimony this evening, as you will find pages and pages in your packet, I hope that you will all enthusiastically support this bill. But I'd like to now invite two testifiers to speak to this Farm to School and Early Care legislation.
All right, our first testifier is Ben Doherty from Northfield, Minnesota, on Open Hands Farm. Thank you for making the commute to be here today, this evening. Please identify yourself before the committee and proceed.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ben Doherty from near Northfield. We farm just outside of Northfield. Thank you for having us here today. I really appreciate you listening to this bill, and also for all your hard work supporting Minnesota farmers and communities. I know you all work very hard and late nights here. Thank you. Since 2006, my wife Erin Johnson and I have owned and operated Open Hands Farm, a 15-acre vegetable farm. We've been LSP members for 18 years as well. We grow most vegetables that can grow here in Minnesota, with an emphasis on carrots, beets, and other roots for fall and winter. We're selling carrots right now to school districts and other customers, school districts being among our biggest customers. We'll probably sell the last carrot from this fall's harvest in May this year. We employ 5 people full-time for 9 months of the year. 4 of them work part-time through the winter, washing and packing carrots and other storage crops. That's a little bit about us. We wanted to say that we believe in investments in farmers and children are among the most simple and intelligent investments that our society can make, and we encourage you to support clearly House File 2043 as a straightforward win-win for Minnesota. Over the years, we at our farm have benefited from several USDA and MDA programs. These will sound familiar to you, hopefully, from low interest loans with FSA for land and for buildings, to value added grants to build and improve our coolers for ideal storage for winter vegetables, to EQIP funds from NRCS to help reduce soil erosion, plant pollinator habitat, and improve our irrigation systems. All those programs from USDA and MDA have made a huge difference in our small farm business growing into a more stable and profitable operation. We see this increase in farm to school funding as a similar opportunity to help many more farms in Minnesota be strong and thriving like ours, while also helping Minnesota kids to learn to love Minnesota foods. I know you all believe in Minnesota agriculture, how important it is all around the state, and I trust and believe that you have high hopes for the future of Minnesota agriculture, that farmers of all sizes and farmers of all crops can continue to thrive and grow and be the bedrock of our communities. As you know, too, a thriving ag economy doesn't just happen. It requires thoughtful investment and support. And supporting schools and using Minnesota-grown foods is one of many critical parts of that hopeful future. Local Foods in Minnesota is $1 billion part of the economy, and helping schools buy more of their ingredients from Minnesota farmers can add significantly to that number. Too often people look at our farm and wonder how we make it, despite struggling under the weight of an overly consolidated farm economy. So I believe we should be creating a future where there could be dozens more farms like ours, contributing and thriving in the state economy. We're investing state funds and feeding kids well, and supporting Minnesota farmers is an easy win-win for all of us. Regarding the importance of the farm to school coordinator positions that this bill would also create, changing school lunch and snack programs to be able to handle raw ingredients like our carrots and direct from the farm products, whether it's produce or meats or other things, it's a very complicated task for any size school district. School nutrition directors are asked to feed our kids well with very small staffs and very tight budgets. They need more support and funding to do the job that society wants them to do. Then these coordinators would be able to help them do that job even better. For us, for 8 years now, we've sold vegetables to Minneapolis public schools, averaging over $40,000 a year in sales for our small farm business. They have an outstanding farm to school program, very highly regarded all around the country. One of the keys to their success is having a farm to school coordinator on staff. It doesn't make sense for smaller districts and maybe even some bigger districts to have a dedicated person in that role. So one aspect of this bill is to create positions for local food coordinators in regions around the state to help many districts at a time meet the challenges of improving school lunch into something that more kids will want to eat and will help them grow and learn even better. And beyond the lunchroom, to help farmers connect with other wholesale markets and for our various types of produce. So briefly, over the years, we've tried to develop relationships with at least 4 other smaller districts in our area who really want to increase the amount of local food in their meals. Some have had passionate nutrition directors willing to dedicate extra time and energy to the goal. Some have had help from nonprofits or from extension agents. Only one of those 4 has been able to substantially increase their amount of local foods purchasing in a lasting way. I think there are very many districts trying and ready to serve more Minnesota foods and farmers producing it, but the districts are running into problems of menuing and labor and food costs and other restrictions. So investing in their success with both the purchasing funds in this bill and the coordinator positions will make a big difference in those districts' success rate. So I encourage you to support, again, these farm to school efforts for our farmers, for our kids, and for our futures. Thank you again for your hard work here.
Thank you. Next we have is Amy Hag, Farm to School Liaison. If you can identify yourself before the committee and proceed.
Madam Chair and members, good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Amy Haig, and I am the Farm to School Liaison in Hutchinson, Litchfield, and Dassel-Cokato Public School Districts. I live on our farm in Litchfield, where my partner and I operated a vegetable farm until 2019, and I have been a longtime member of the Land Stewardship Project. I believe in the power of community-based food systems, and tonight I will be testifying in support of House File 2043. The districts I represent are 3-time recipients of the Agri Farm to School Full Tray Reimbursement Grants. These funds have inspired our kitchens to adopt a more seasonal menu and bring freshly harvested, nutrient-dense foods for our lunch and breakfast programs. Student excitement is growing as they're exposed to new ingredients, community stories, and better tasting foods. This excitement means increased participation rates, and that means increasing great nutrition for students of all ages. Because of these awards, Hutchinson, Litchfield, and Dassel Cato Public Schools are on track to purchase over $630,000 in local foods in just 3 quick years. Our Farm to School program feeds over 6,300 students, inspires 12 kitchens, and purchases fresh fruits and vegetables, beef, dairy, dry beans, honey, and maple syrup from over a dozen farms and ranches in 3 counties. As a former farmer, I can confidently say that this significantly impacts the bottom line of each and every farming partner that we work with. Our districts have also been awarded equipment funds from the Farm to School grants. We have purchased industrial food processors, better oven technology, new freezers and coolers. Our success in the cafeterias is without a doubt because of these improvements. This equipment gives our food service staff the tools they need to do these Minnesota high-quality ingredients justice. Dollars to improve the kitchen infrastructure and support our local purchases are necessary pieces to establishing a successful farm-to-school program. However, I'm especially here tonight to speak to the importance of creating regional local food coordinator positions across our great state. We have been successful because my director has carved out space within her budget for the coordinating role that I have. And in talking to other districts who have reached out to me for support, this is not a commonly supported option. Having a focused coordinator has helped our districts in a very rural, isolated part of the country take our farm to school program from 0 to 60 in 3 very quick years. Coordinators like me can build relational capital that will revolutionize our food system here in Minnesota. Folks in this role can be educated about food safety concerns and best practices for both farmers and these kitchens, replicate successes among classrooms, kitchens, and farms to make meaningful change quickly, share stories of specific crop varieties with staff so they can buy in and be awesome ambassadors for kids, consult with a nutrition director to design a seasonal menu that reflects the specific abundance of farmers nearby, and plug into statewide farm to school and harvest of the month networks for support. Most importantly, these coordinators can be the point person for BIPOC, emerging, and otherwise marginalized farmers to access scalable markets that will be important to their farm success. With this kind of people power, farmers and ranchers will be able to sell tons and tons of food back into their communities, providing better nutrition to our most important school-age kids. Last year, we saw a federal grant of $4.25 million offered up to Minnesota, and that was still not enough to meet the demand that schools asked for. We can choose to notice this momentum and help create a lasting community-based food system that works for farmers, that works for small business owners, and that works for institutions. We can choose to make space for farmers' stories in our schools, and we can choose to invest this historic surplus in community feeding community. Let's do that. Thank you for engaging in this work and for allowing me to testify tonight.
Thank you. I don't see any further testifiers. Do we have anyone from the public that would like to testify? All right, we'll move to discussion of the bill. Any discussion? I have a question, Representative Purcell. Do you know how many school districts are participating in this farm to school program, or if you know how many are interested in participating?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but there may be someone in the audience who can help me with that answer.
Perhaps someone from the department can? Yes. All right, if you can identify yourself before the committee and proceed.
Ashley Bress. I'm Assistant Director of the Ag Marketing and Development Division, the Department of Agriculture. Madam Chair, members, that's a great question. Although I don't have exact data on how many school districts across the state are participating in Farm to School, the data that I do have relates to that last round of grants that we're in the process of awarding right now. During that application process, we had 122 schools and school districts apply and are in the process of awarding grants to 116 of those.
Right, thank you. Representative Harder.
Thank you, Chair Vang. Thank you, Representative Purcell. I'm going to need some clarification because I'm like, wow. Okay, so right now, the funding is 800,000, correct? And the request is 5 million? That's quite an increase. Tell me where you're going to get the money from.
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Harder. This would come from the ag budget, this committee's budget. I would love to appropriate much more than that because we see that it has a triple benefit, the triple bottom line of supporting our farmers, our rural communities, and our students. We see that the need is out there, and it's that missing link part of making sure the farmers know whom to contact to then make the connection with the schools, if that answers your question.
Representative Harder.
Thank you, Chair Vang. You mean taxpayers? It'll be taxpayers. Tell me, I need to know more information. This is a lot of money. How does this compete or compare with the bill that was passed, the Lunches for All? How does that compete with that? Does it compete? Is this completely different? I really need help clarifying. I mean, I get it. The kids need to eat. We all know that, right? But I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the dollar amount. I really am. So I need clarification. Is there competition there between the two programs then?
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Harder. I know much less about the school meal part. I would love if those school meals that we're providing had more of our local produce, our local meat and veg and dairy and all of that we talked about. I know in this committee we have seen proposals go to in much greater dollar amounts to some of the alphabet soup that I can't think of off the top of my head, all the different programs and projects that we have. So in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't feel like a large amount of money to me. And I think this is an investment that is worth making, is my take on it.
Representative Harder.
Thank you. I have another question. Thank you, Chair Vang. So help me also to understand. So the program is planning to hire a coordinator at the state level. So how is that handled now? Because not only are we looking at increasing the dollars for this program, but now we're increasing the size of government by adding more employees. So how is that handled now with that particular position?
Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for the question. So my understanding is right now within the Department of Agriculture, there's an employee who only gets to spend about 1/3 of their time on this coordinating position. So in the proposal, then there'd be a full-time person who gets to dedicate their time. Again, that person has seen a lot more requests for their time than they are able to give it because they've got all these other obligations within the Department of Ag. And then to have these regional coordinators, which is not an FTE attached to it because like the testifier here, it might be someone already embedded in the community, maybe doing this part-time can work for them. It's more about that community connection. I wrote down when she talked about, community-based food systems. But inside Department of Ag, there is a person who's a coordinator, but they can't give it their full-time equivalent.
A final follow-up, Representative Harder.
That's all for now. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the bill author, we're talking about there's more demand than meets supply or something. So tell me, is the demand from schools wanting more access to this type of program? Or I think about the farms in the area around a school, there's got to be a finite number of vegetable or operations that would have produce to sell to a school. So what's the balance there, and talk about the demand?
Representative Purcell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Lead Anderson, for the question. So my understanding, so like very, very close, not in my district, but close to where I live, is Ferndale Farm, Ferndale Market. So they grow turkeys there. And they already have a pretty vast distribution system. So I don't know that necessarily it's, like only farms that are really quite close to each school. Someone who has been involved on the implementation side perhaps can speak to that more. But I think where we're seeing the demand is coming from the schools. And then in the governor's budget, when he proposed not increasing the funds, but he did increase the qualifiable folks. So this has been a K through 12 program. And the idea is that early care centers, daycare centers, those types of facilities would also like access to this. And so that's sort of a potential increase in where the even more demand than is currently kind of applicable may be coming from. But that's where we're seeing, not so much on the farmer side, because Ben and Aaron have been doing this for some time, because in Minneapolis, we've seen that dedicated staff person and the dedicated funding. It's hard to make a plan to plant as many carrots and root vegetables that they do for selling to an institution, and just thinking, well, is this going to just be here for 1 year? So at least this funding, we're hoping then can be, at least over the biennium, to give some stability. But we haven't seen necessarily the demand from the farmers, because it's like not sure what the future of it is, but we are absolutely seeing the demand from the schools.
Representative Anderson?
Thanks again, Madam Chair. And I know you don't have your target yet, but we're really getting into the agri-fund with all these bills that are really asking for significant increases in funding. And now, Representative Purcell, to talk about the actual funding, if my math is correct here, of the 5.7 million that would go out the first year, over $1 million of that is going to go for admin, the Department of Agriculture, and $500,000 for grants to other organizations that will, I'm not quite sure what they're going to do, grants to help review the program or whatever, but can you walk through some of the admin costs? They seem really high, over $1 million of your 5.7 million.
Representative Purcell?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Lead Anderson. I will do my best to do that. So I think we're looking at part of the DE amendment that is included in this. So the $150,000 is that statewide coordinator position, moving that to just a one dedicated full-time person. The $50,000 for the evaluation, and then I think you're looking at in the DE1 amendment line 1.21, item 4, that $500,000. So that is to have those regional folks. So not necessarily, well, I guess my understanding, and maybe our researcher can help me out here, that it may not be that then these people are employed by the Department of Agriculture, but they might be employed elsewhere. I guess I'm not clear on that. If you might help House Research.
Mr. Sullivan?
Madam Chair and Representative Purcell, under Clause 4, the $500,000 each year is for grants to outside organizations that would provide community-based regional marketing assistance to farmers. So those would be state-funded folks, but they would not be state employees as this is drafted.
Thank you.
Representative Anderson?
Thanks, Madam Chair. So again, walk me through the purpose. I mean, that's a lot of money, $500,000 for outside organizations to advise farmers. Tell me how that's all going to work.
Representative Purcell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Anderson. This is a ballpark number, a starting place number. Happy to talk with you if this is not where we think this needs to be. I think least when we were running our small-scale diversified farm, it's hard to know what's out there and what is available and how to access these different markets. So it seems to me some money needs to be allocated there just to have the outreach in the community and have someone ideally who is really embedded in the community to know, you know, hey, these folks over here, they're wanting to grow more, you know, tomatoes, and maybe there's a potential market now with the institution. So that's my understanding, but I am not wedded to that number and would be happy to chat more about that as this goes into an omnibus potentially.
Representative Anderson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Again, yeah, I would suggest or advise that, you know, the lady that talked, that she was working with 3 different school districts. That seemed to be a really efficient way to expand a program. And I would think going more in that direction and less in this direction of grants to organizations would be money better spent.
All right, hearing no further questions or discussion, closing remarks, Representative Purcell?
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee, and thank you to all the amazing supporters and testifiers from this evening and over the years. Adequately funding our farm to school and early care program is a win-win-win for our farmers, our students, and our communities, especially our rural communities. By keeping these dollars circulating in our small towns and rural places by providing another market for farmers who are not near the metro area. The Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy and the University of Minnesota's Extension recent evaluation report on the first round of this grant found that every dollar spent by schools through this grant generated an additional dollar of impact in local economic activity. Selling to schools can be a stepping stone for farmers to expand their business model beyond direct sales to include wholesale markets. As you heard, farmers can be hesitant to invest in the infrastructure and equipment that could take their operation to the next level to participate in farm-to-school markets, precisely because this funding is not always guaranteed. Increasing the funding to $5 million a year would allow farmers to feel secure in the market, allow more schools to participate in the program, and feed more students and children healthy, nutritious food. This level of funding is supporting transformational change in the farm and food system and for our rural communities. And as a parent whose children has gotten to participate in this program, as a grower and as a neighbor, I support this bill and I encourage additional conversation. Thank you.
All right. Hearing none, Representative Purcell renews her motion that House File 2043 as amended be laid over for possible inclusion, and House File 2043 as amended is laid over.